This is going to be another weekly segment where I take a topic and discuss it with my man 30 and Still Gaming, but Brono is in town. My brother is in town. He's going to join us for the discussion. Xbox in 2023, have they had a strong start, or is it all talk? And we're going to be bringing people over from the member stream as well. We'll do a redirect, so make sure as you guys come over, you're smashing the like button, and make sure you're checking out 30 and Still Gaming at his channel, 30NSG. It's right there beneath him if you want to catch his content. Thanks for being here, guys. We appreciate it so much. Say hello to everybody.
What's going on? Thanks for having us.
Good morning, good afternoon. Hello.
That's right.
And good evening.
That's right. You forgot the good evening.
No, I left it out on purpose.
My kids will do that.
It's evening for you. You can just, get wrecked.
If you're in the evening, don't watch.
You deserve it.
So, Brono was in the air, probably over the water, over the ocean, when the showcase happened. So, he'll have to speak more 30,000 feet about Xbox and the optics of everything that happened. So, just to summarize for the people at home that maybe missed it as well, I have an upload if you want to see my thoughts on it. Mike, did you do a video reviewing it and your thoughts?
Yeah, I did a little breakdown real quick, just overall like what I saw and what I thought, but I didn't go too much in depth. I was saving it for separate videos and for this.
So check those videos out, but I'll give you a quick summary. So there was supposed to be 4 showings: Forza Motorsport, a new chapter in the Elder Scrolls Online. There was Redfall, and then
Minecraft Legends.
Thank you. I was blanking on that. And they threw in a 5th game, surprise game, Hi-Fi Rush, which I actually, funny enough, my brother Derek would probably really like that game. It's very reminiscent of Jet Grind Radio, as well as Sunset Overdrive. It's a rhythm-based game where you attack people. It's a hit. It's a huge hit. They dropped it on Game Pass that day. It has risen on the charts on Steam. It's only $30 on Steam. It's killing it right now. That was a big win for them. And overall, it was a good showcase. The only thing that was sort of lacking was Forza Motorsport didn't have a release date. They did a stream the next day, still no release date. And Forza Motorsport is supposed to be launching in the first half of 2023. That's still an unknown. And there was no announcement about the Starfield showcase. That was the only thing I was hoping for. Not necessarily info or footage of Starfield, just, hey, when's the showcase? So that's the flyover. Mike, give me your thoughts on the showcase as a whole. Good, bad, thumbs up, thumbs down. Where did this land for you as Microsoft kind of kicked off the year with this developer direct?
I really liked it. I was talking about it afterwards, saying I hope that they do this at least once a quarter, on top of the E3 or the Summer Game Fest type of stuff information as well. Like, I just thought it was nice and concise. I know some people were like, they felt like the developers were talking too much, but I thought they showed enough gameplay. They talked behind. You get to kind of meet the devs or whatever as they describe the game. I thought it was just perfect. It was like 10 minutes each for each of the shows, or a little less because there was 5 games, but about 7 to 10 minutes for each of the things. I thought it was just enough to get your taste buds going. Yeah, overall, I thought it was a solid show, and I look forward to them doing them more. I hope it's not like the one and done type of thing. Like, yeah, here's the 5 games for the beginning of the year, and we'll see you E3, and then we'll see you at the Video Game Awards. It's like, oh, thanks, Microsoft.
Well, and I'm getting pushback in chat, and then so Derek can weigh in on this. Even though he didn't see it, I wasn't expecting Starfield news. I said that, like, I was not expecting any Starfield news, nothing. But I thought, hey, at the end of this, that's the perfect time to say, hey, this is when the Starfield showcase will be, because Starfield is supposed to be launching in the next 4 months. So how do you not know when the showcase is, Derek? If you would have been watching this showcase, is that an even remote expectation that you would have had, that they would at least tell you, oh yeah, this is when you can learn more about Starfield, or do you think it's just out of the frame right now?
I would think that they would probably
stop that.
Give us a little bit of information about that big of an anticipated title, but I wouldn't be dead set. I wouldn't have convinced myself to expect it. I would have been like, it'd be nice, but I don't put anything past them as far as either just pretending there's no news or delaying the news or bad news. So I suppose no news is better than bad news, right? That's kind of how I would feel about a game that I was looking forward to with reservation as well. They didn't say anything, so at least they didn't say anything that is really, really upsetting or negative.
There's people that think that. They think it's getting delayed again, so they're trying to go quiet. Mike, I mean, where do you think the showcase lands? Like, is it going to land in time for them to even get this thing out before or in June.
Well, one, I don't know why. First, I don't think the anticipation of if Starfield showed up, I think it would have taken away from the other games because Starfield's the biggest game that everyone's waiting for. So I think it was smart for them to not even bring it up. They just said ahead of time, hey, look, we're not talking about this at all. So that was the standard. Talking about when Starfield's going to drop, when you look at the games they talked about, Minecraft Legends is coming out in April. Then you have Redfall coming out in May. You have Forza Motorsports. We don't know. It's probably not coming out in April. Everyone's like, oh, calm down. They'll tell it the next day. I was like, why would they tell it the next day? Like, this is the event to talk about when the release dates are. So I don't think Forza Motorsports comes. If it does come, it's coming in June, right at the very end. Because ESO's update, that's not really a game announcement, right? That's just an expansion announcement to a game that's been out for 10 years, 11 years. So they're just adding to it like they do every year. So Starfield is kind of weird because they did, just shadow drop this Hi-Fi Rush game out of nowhere. We heard about 2 days before what the name was. We had no idea what the game was. And it's actually a pretty good game. I'm about 2 hours in right now, and I'm really enjoying it. So the shadow drop they did here, I wonder if Bethesda and Xbox decide to do nothing up until June, right? Like right before E3, they have a separate event that happens, and then they show you Starfield, and then they just drop it right at the end of that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just kind of weird because right now you're going into February, and if they show the event now, if they don't show the event, you have 4 months, then you have 3 months, you have 2 months. Like, when are they going to show it? And I don't think they're going to drop it on Minecraft Legends in the same month. I don't think they're going to drop it in the same month as Redfall. So I don't know. It just kind of in limbo. I still think it's dropping in October, November, personally. But
I have a question.
Yeah.
So there were 5 major announcements, 5 major games covered in this.
Yes.
One of which was Ghost dropped and is now available to play right now.
Yep.
Correct.
Of the other 4, were there any hard dates given?
They all gave hard dates except for Forza Motorsport.
Do we believe the dates are going to come true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my question, having missed it, was
May
if we get dates that we actually believe will come to fruition.
May 2nd for Redfall, June 20th for the Elder Scrolls chapter, Minecraft Legends April 28th?
No, April 8th.
April 8th. Sorry. I don't it's hard to remember the dates. So it's April, May, June. Bam, bam, bam. April, May, June. So obviously that makes everybody look at February and March. Do you have anything for February and March?
The 8th. I'm sorry, the 4th. It's the 4th. April 4th.
Okay. I got the dates all wrong. The months are what are mostly important.
So they've got a major release in 3 months in a row, right?
Yes.
And one just came out, yesterday?
January.
Correct.
Boom. Yeah.
And then, February is the only month with nothing?
March.
Okay. So
February, March.
We can hypothesize, or maybe it's just a dead month.
Yeah, there are people theorizing March Starfield, right? Because if you look at these announcements and you're like, okay, January Ghost Drop, and then April, May, June. The March Starfield date, the reason I kind of about that is because on that one podcast where all these people that have inside information, they laughed at the prospect, almost like there's no way. And now there's a leaker. So there was a leaker who got Hi-Fi Rush dead right, said, yep, surprise drop, this is what the game's going to be like. This leaker claims Redfall's going to launch in bad shape and that Starfield's in worse shape than Redfall, but Microsoft really wants Starfield to land in June. Bethesda would prefer Starfield to land in the fall because they want more time to polish it. So March seems... There's too many things that pointing well away from March. It's either June or I've been saying 10-10-23 because I think that's it's a Friday. I think it looks cool. It's like a binary number, that 10-10. And they love to have the date and the month be the same number. So then wherever you are in the world, it's the exact same. With respect to Starfield timing here, I agree with Derek. I think you might as well wait if it's going to be bad. This is I'm going to give Xbox a W. This was a great start to the year. The Ghost Drop, It's dominating the charts. Everyone's talking about Hi-Fi Rush. But if as soon as it's time to start delivering your titles, if Redfall delivers and is bad, it honestly doesn't look fantastic. It looks okay. I think it looks good. But if it launches in a bad state and then Starfield launches in a bad state, none of this matters. You're going to immediately be back to square one of Xbox kind of stinks as a platform.
But does it stink and does it really not matter? Because it's just on Game Pass, right? I say this all the time. Game Pass, right? Every time you bring up Game Pass, like, okay, you just saw 4 games yesterday or 5 games the other day. Are you excited about any of those games? Would you pay $70 for any of those games that showed up?
I would for Starfield.
Starfield wasn't at the event.
Oh, for the games at the event.
I have to see this hi-fi game before I could decide.
Well,
It's a $30 game for that one.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Well, then that one I would say yes. $30, okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't spend 70 on Redfall. I'm not a car guy, but I guarantee you Forza fans would for Forza Motorsport. It looked phenomenal. It looked phenomenal.
That's a niche community, though. That sports racing games are a very niche community, right?
Well, not niche in quantity, niche in appeal.
Appeal. Yes, correct. So I don't think a lot of people, and again, the people that are going to spend $70 on that racing game, why? They're just going to get it on Game Pass, right? Most of the people would just get it on Game Pass. So I don't know, the way that Microsoft has their marketing and stuff right now, like people on Steam, the High Five Rush is like number 5 on the list of Steam, but how many people like just downloaded it right away off of Game Pass, right? Because it's there. So I don't know, a lot of the stuff that comes out, like I'm not buying any of those games, especially when Hogwarts is coming out, because I'm excited to spend my $70 or $80 to get that 3 days early just to play Hogwarts. I'm excited to spend my $70 on Jedi Survivor. Right? I'm excited to spend my $70 on Diablo. I'm not excited to not spend any of this money on any of these games that are coming on Game Pass, because they're just like, okay, if they're good, they're great, good. But if they're not, then okay, they're still there.
I wonder if this adds credence to some of the things I've said about the Activision Blizzard deal, is that Microsoft wants to sell software, and I wonder if Hi-Fi Rush is a glimpse into their strategy. You drop it on Game Pass, it's a huge hit, and then it's going to sell really well everywhere else. Like, they're making money on Steam. Imagine if Hi-Fi Rush was for sale right now on PlayStation for $30, because there's more PlayStations in circulation, right? So you'd be making... Imagine if it was on Nintendo Switch. Like, if Microsoft treats the Activision Blizzard property in that way, Game Pass can be this massive springboard catalyst to, like, everybody's talking about the game because everybody can download it. Derek, maybe talk about that, like, because Zubair is agreeing with Mike. Zubair says 30 is 100% right. Game Pass lowers the bar for satisfaction. Are those things in tension? Like what I'm saying with this is a great way to spin a game up and get a ton of people buying it, but what 30 is saying is you can launch kind of mediocre games because they're on Game Pass. You don't even need to have the demand for the sale.
What's the question for me then?
Do you think there's I talked a lot. Is there a tension between using the subscription service to spin up a game and have it be popular, and Mike saying they can use the subscription service to just crank out mediocre games?
I would say they do both, and we can watch them do both all the time. I think you get games that are an obvious and really good pull for even people who might not want to pay for subscriptions, but are like, oh, that's the game I'll jump in for. If that's the only way I can play, I'll pay it, the subscription. And you've got people who will pay the subscription and then they're like, well, it was free because they've already invested the money for the year, right? They've already, if you pay down the whole year and so the next 10 months you're not paying the bill because it's already paid for, then it's really easy to be in the mindset that anything that I'm given is free. So I complain. It could be absolute garbage, but it was free.
Right.
Whereas, for me, I would rather just pick the one game I want and just buy that.
Well, Game Pass, right? Well, if we're going to talk about Starfield's 1,000 planets, going to be a pretty big story or whatever, like 30, 40 hours potentially. And if you're paying for Game Pass monthly and you're only playing that game, it's not worth it. You would probably just go out and buy the $70 game, right? Because the Game Pass is the more games you play, the better your value is. Where if you like a game so much, then you just go buy that game because that's what you're going to play. Because it definitely wouldn't be worth the money. Because if you're playing Starfield for the next year and you're playing it on Game Pass, you're literally paying for $180 for that same game that you would have just paid $70 for.
Right.
What about the lack of a release date for Forza Motorsport? Because I had some people say they really put themselves into a corner with this whole, all these games are coming out in the next 12 months, and it's already looking like Forza Motorsport might not make it, and Starfield, according to a lot of what we've heard from both people that have inside information, as well as a leaker, that Starfield might not make it. Where do you think that puts Xbox in customer satisfaction, frustration? Because 2022 was so absent of titles, they were really trying to boost that confidence. I've had a lot of people say, oh no, if they delay Starfield to second half, I'm done. I don't care anymore. I'm like, I would much rather them delay it so that it's good. I'm not going to hold them to that stupid calendar image.
Well, I've always frustrated when people give dates. Like, from now on, like, even though Redfall's coming out May 2nd, I don't believe it. I don't believe anything I hear anymore from actual release dates, because 11/11/22, that's when Starfield was supposed to come out, and they're like, nah, just kidding, right? And now they're telling us that they need more time, right? And other people are defending them, saying, well, they're ready to launch. They're just trying to keep it, Look, they know when their game is done, right? And if they release it in a broken, buggy state, that's on them. If they delayed it 3 times and it comes out and it's still in bad shape, that's on them, right? With Game Pass, I know a lot of people are saying for Starfield, like, when are we going to buy the collector's edition? They haven't announced anything yet. So I was like, what about if they don't have a collector's edition? The last time they had a collector's edition, it was terrible because of the canvas bag incident with Fallout 76, right? Like, that was a whole big commotion for stuff. So sure, you could buy the collector's edition digitally and you can get that other piece in the mail later, but the game comes out when it comes out. I don't like dates anymore. Just shut up. Release the game when it's done. And because now, if Starfield comes out in June and it comes out broken, buggy, be like, what happened to the date that you delayed it for back in November, right? And now you said you were going to delay it again, but then you're like, no, we pushed it out. Delay it as long as you can, as long as the game comes out and it works. But this is why I think it doesn't matter. And again, change my mind, right? I think Game Pass, and I love Game Pass because my 8-year-old downloads games and deletes them as fast as he can download them, right? He plays it and goes, I'm done with this, and moves on. Saves me a fortune. But I just think it's bad for the business. I like the PlayStation model of keep first-party exclusives off that platform for just like a year and then put them on later. I just don't like the first-party titles coming on because it diminishes the value of the game and kind of says like, well, if it's broke, it's mediocre. It's okay. It's on Game Pass. They'll fix it down the road, and I have all these other 100 games I could play.
That's been something I know, Mike, you've really said is that Game Pass removes that pressure. Like if the game is bad, people just kind of throw it over their shoulder.
Sure.
And another thing we've been talking about is, we kind of joke, Derek will be in chat, we joke about the wait is over, right? The wait is over for Microsoft. So for you, Derek, if you're looking at 2023, first half looks better than last year already. What would you look for in the second half? Because they'll go to Summer Game Fest, they'll go to E3. There's going to be a Summer Game Fest, summer marketing push, I should say, in June, which will likely focus on the next 6 months of this year as well as probably the first half of 2024. If you got a PS5, what would you want to see if you had a Series X, or to get you to even buy a Series X? Like, what are you looking for from Microsoft even beyond what we've already seen for the first half to make you say, okay, yeah, they're having a better push, a better year, better games?
Okay, well then I would need to see what are their plans after whatever plans they currently are telling us to just wait till tomorrow. Okay, fine. Say that happens in the last half of the month, and we have at the end of, say, Christmas time comes, and everything we thought we'd get this year we have. Whatever month it came, February or March or November. Now we have Starfield and we have all these other games that we thought we would have. This year, unlike last year, we got everything we were supposed to get. Even so, and I would say that would be great for everybody, even if I'm not playing those games, it's good for my friends and my brother and anybody else who's in the industry
right,
who likes to play games that they like. Great, but then what I need to hear is, well, what are you going to do next year? Because I'm not seeing a whole lot in any given year, even when you have the win, that's tempting to me or that makes me want to spend hundreds of bucks for a whole new console to play one maybe good version of Fallout in space. Like, I need to know more than that. I would think an Xbox fan would be like, okay, but like, if the wait is over, then, what are we actually getting? What's next?
Yeah. I think the subscription model puts pressure on them to have a healthy cadence of games, because if not, that was the criticism last year. It's like, okay, you have Game Pass, but outside of a lot of great, arguably some great indie titles, but outside of that, like, where are the big hits? Where's that big cadence? Because if you remove Starfield and Redfall and even the Elder Scrolls Online from their calendar this year, because they got that because they bought Bethesda. So if you remove that from the calendar, man, the calendar starts to get really thin. So it's like, okay, what are you bringing that you didn't get sort of a benefit from buying Bethesda? What's the cadence of games for 2024? What are your first party studios doing? That's my question. What are your first party studios doing? You're out here trying to buy Activision Blizzard. Great. Whether or not that goes through is up to bigger minds and bigger countries. What are your first party studios doing? What's going on with Fable? What's going on with Avowed? Hellblade 2? When's the next Gears game coming out? I mean, these I think are. I agree with Derek. You've got to start talking about that cadence, and that's why I think they should be doing something like this maybe every quarter or every 6 months, just to set that tone of here's what's coming,
and start saying stuff that's coming and have it be true. If you give a date, have it actually come true for once. That'd be a nice surprise.
Yeah.
I would like them to come out and just tell, like, when they show games, like for instance they showed Redfall, but I want to know the meats and potatoes still. I don't know what that game is. Like, I want to know what the loop is, right? I understand that you're going on quests and you have a skill tree and stuff, but they could have done more in depth of that. Like, the game's almost done, right? It's coming out May 2nd. They could have went into a little bit more in depth. So if they do these per quarter, I don't care if they give me a release date. I truly don't, because if it's a first party title on Xbox, it's coming to Game Pass. So you don't have to care, like, to save your change up to be like, oh yeah, I need to know when it's coming out. Yeah, you want to get hyped, but I think you would get a little bit more hyped. Sort of like what Hogwarts Legacy has been doing month after month. They drop a little 14-minute long a dev stream. They walk around. They talk about little mechanics here and there, and then they stop. And then the next month they came out with something else. I think when you start to get closer and closer, this is the nice little thing that they can do. Obviously, you don't have to do it every single month, but if they did it once a quarter and said, "Hey, it's a check-in. It's quarter 2 of the year," and all of a sudden let's show you a little glimpse of Fable. Right, we're still in early stages, but this is what it's looking like, because that goes a long way with gamers when you can, like, feel like you're a part of the process, and you're like, oh, this looks cool, and then you can talk and communicate with each other, go, yeah, it looks like crap, it looks good, whatever. It gets that buzz going, and then down the line when it gets closer and closer, they're like, we're getting real close, and then when they know there's an actual date, and they know they're going to hit that date, then they can actually say, hey, it's dropping in November, it's dropping in December. That's what I think they should do.
I want to respond to a question, because I think this is, I don't think it's a fair question, but I'm going to treat it like it's a fair question. These guys are talking about Xbox, says Soy2 Mangs. Says, what's Sony bringing? Spider-Man 2 and a paid exclusive. What is Sony bringing in 2024? How come these guys don't bring that same energy towards PlayStation? I mean, it's a real simple answer. PlayStation's had a good cadence up to now. I don't have a reason to be skeptical or worried about the cadence of PlayStation games, because since PlayStation 5 launched, even in light of delays, their cadence of games has been better. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. So, sure, if I get to the end of this year and all I got was Spider-Man 2 and a Horizon Forbidden West DLC, I'll probably be a little disappointed. I'm like, well, that was kind of a thin year for PlayStation. But PlayStation hasn't said anything because they didn't do their annual showcase at the end of last year, and we got to let them talk. They went quiet because of the Activision Blizzard deal. So until PlayStation starts talking and does a state of play and starts putting out their blogs, I don't know what their cadence of games is yet. But I will bring the same energy. Like, I'll be disappointed if PlayStation has a thin year. I love their property and their games, and it'd be a bummer if all I get is Spider-Man 2 and a Forbidden West DLC.
Also, we didn't bring it up because the topic today is about the Xbox showcase that just happened, not the Sony PlayStation showcase that just happened. So we're having a conversation about the games.
Don't be pedantic and say that we're just talking about the thing we're talking about. That would be fair. That would be reasonable. That. Don't do that.
Somebody says that's an opinion, not a fact. No, it's an objective fact that PlayStation has had a better cadence of first-party games. Like, that's basic math. Like, take a math class and add up the number of first-party titles and the cadence and measure it, and then measure the first-party title cadence of Xbox. That's an objective fact. Like, I'm not speaking opinion there. Like, they've been doing a better job. Even the biggest Xbox fans readily admit PlayStation's had a better cadence of games. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that. That's not out of left field.
I always have the same question for people who present any argument as they're both equally bad. Oh, really? Okay. Well, then substantiate that. Does PlayStation have a Starfield? A game that's that big, that anticipated, that important of a property or development of a new property from a developer who's long-standing. That's been delayed how many times? Is there anything that's a reasonable analog for that? Okay, then we can talk about if it's the same problem or the same magnitude of disappointment. I don't think that there is one, but I don't know every game that's been announced and been delayed.
Well, it is fair to say plenty of games got delayed. The industry...
To this extent?
No, certainly not. The industry shared that. That's why I never took anybody to task for delays in 2020, 2021, and even last year. I was like, that's fine. We're getting out from underneath the shadow of what happened. Like, that's fine. The industry shared that. But now it's time to deliver. And again, without Bethesda, the question remains, Microsoft, what are your other studios doing? And I think that's a fair question. Because, Mike, do you think we get Hellblade 2 this year? I mean, it wasn't in the showcase, but like we're talking about Xbox in 2023. That's part of the equation. People are like, oh, yeah, Hellblade 2 is coming this year.
I mean, obviously, I think at E3, we see Hellblade 2 and we see like Avowed, but I don't know if they drop the second half of this year. I don't know. Maybe Avowed, maybe like October, November, or either that or Hellblade. I don't think both drop in the second half of this year.
Right. Viceroy says, didn't you say if you remove the Bethesda games, what would Xbox have? Aren't Bethesda Studios first party? You understand the reason I'm saying that, right? Like Starfield and Redfall were in development when Bethesda was purchased, so those aren't the result of being owned by Microsoft and being under Microsoft leadership and ownership. So like, that's what I'm saying is like, if that acquisition wouldn't have gone through, what are all the other first-party studios doing? Like you buy a team mid-season and are you gonna take credit for them getting into the playoffs? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. That's the point I'm making. Like, yes, Starfield and Redfall could be big wins for Xbox, but I don't know. Derek, you were gonna talk about Hellblade 2, Derek. What were you gonna say?
I doubt that we'll see it this year.
See it launch or see it at all?
See it launch. I think we'll hear. I think they will probably try to at least tease us with something. But with as little, I feel like there's been basically no information at all for a while. So I would be surprised if we saw an actual game release 2023.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring up
that
the
guy
list.
was serious about how many Halo Infinites does PlayStation have? Because that's a great question, especially if you're asking sarcastically. Because I would argue 0. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. Imagine one of the big flagships of PlayStation being as bad as Halo Infinite. I think that's fair, and that's related to what Eugene said. Eugene says the Microsoft concern isn't just this year. It's been built up because of lackluster releases going back several years, resulting in a poor overall library. I think that's fair because, like, even if you don't look at PlayStation's cadence, look at the library of games you can play right now. If you buy a PlayStation 5, you got Miles Morales, you got Spider-Man, you got Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Death Stranding Director's Cut. The list goes on. They've gone back and updated all these games. Now, I know someone would push back and say, oh, but the Game Pass library is huge and FPS boost. Okay, fair point. But you can only ride on that for so long. That's where the plane, I think, is more balanced. Like, both engines are running for PlayStation. You got this backlog of amazing titles that got updated and new titles. And I don't think you can run on Game Pass and FPS boost.
What is this?
For, they put you on that guy, the breathing guy.
I like it. I approve of it.
So, somebody photoshopped in the Discord. So
sorry.
On the subject of Hellblade 2, you guys gave your answers. I'll give mine. There is literally no way. There's almost no way
it's coming out this year.
That it's coming out this year, and it's very easy to substantiate the skepticism and the doubt about it coming out this year. We're not even 2 years away from this when this was stated. So in the summer of 2023, this year, we'll be 2 years out from the CEO of Ninja Theory saying that the game had still not entered full production. So we don't know when it entered full production. Let's say as soon as he finished that sentence, they were like, now we're going full production. That's only 2 years of full production for a game that's incredibly ambitious if you've looked at what they're going to try to do with that engine. There's no way they built that game in 2 years.
Do we know how long the first game took? I don't know. I'm asking.
I don't know because Ninja Theory is not a huge developer,
right.
And I don't know what the dev cycle was on it.
I just the reason I bring it up is because if it did take them, let's say 2-3 years, right? Like obviously, the first God of War that came out that they did back in 2018, they worked on that for like I think it was like 5 years, right? And then they did this one faster because they already had the assets and elements and stuff like that they were using the same engine and putting it in. So potentially, Hellblade 2 could take a shorter development time, but I just don't know how long the first game was in development. But the second game, they probably use the same assets, which would shorten the development time. So technically it could come out, but still, I don't think there's enough time for it to bake, right? And going to the conversation earlier, does that really matter? Because obviously I don't think it comes out this year. It'll probably come out next year, but is it going to be ready? Like, will it be done, or is it just going to be like waiting for the dough to rise?
Is it even a real game? Is it even real?
It is.
It's not as real as the day before, but
Oh my gosh! Keep in mind, Mike, the previous game was Unreal 4. This is Unreal 5, so there is dev time where they've got to move those assets as well. So that could slow it down.
They started. Well, that's true. They still have to move it over. I was going to say because it's been out since what? It's been 18 months since the devs got their hands on the actual Unreal Engine 5 software. I think since then.
They announced in 2020 they'd be doing Hellblade 2 in UE5. They knew back then they were doing it. So maybe the announcements were out about it.
It's been 24 then. Okay.
Yeah, but they when they showed the trailer in June of 2021, I and many other people were frustrated that they showed us this amazing trailer. It's all in engine. And then the CEO's like, yeah, we haven't even entered full production yet. It's like, well, why are you showing us the game then? That means your game's 3 or 4 years away. Like, what are you doing? So the hope for it coming out, I think, is misguided with what we know about dev cycles, especially team size. They're not even that big of a developer. Andrew Wilkins tipped $5 and said, "Greetings, panel. Have you noticed that whenever Xbox fans hype something up, they jinx it to fail? Hellblade 1 wasn't even a big game in quality or sales. Hellblade 1 kind of became a cult classic. It wasn't some big marketing push at all. So it wasn't. Yeah. What do you guys think about that? Did the fans jinx the titles?
I mean, I don't think we're all looking for it to come out. Look, I give my thoughts based on what's placed in front of me, and the companies themselves don't even have confidence in their games, right? Halo, it's a year and a half since launch, and it was delayed a year, and it's still in the state that it's in right now, right? Like, you look at all these other past Xbox titles that are coming out, and they say, oh, well, it's going to come out this year, and it comes out, and it's lackluster. Even third-party games, Battlefield 2042, Cyberpunk was famous and infamous of saying that we're not going to release a game broken unfinished, and then they did, right? So it's not the fans going, oh yeah, I hope this game sucks. It's the fans are going, oh, I hope this is good. The last one that came out, here we go, and they're kind of like praying that it's not as like the other ones in the past.
I think saying you jinxed it is funny, as a hindsight is 2020 kind of a conversational analogy, but it doesn't actually literally mean it's your fault because you said this, that this happened.
Right.
So like if anybody says that and actually is in some way arguing, well, it's because of these fans and what they... No. Anytime you actually jinx something, it's because you do something wrong at the right time when you shouldn't have been doing it, which in the case of a game that gets jinxed is pressure from outside of developers making them rush to do things and deliver an unfinished product.
Yeah.
That's how you jinx it. It's not, it's funny to say, oh, I jinxed it. I shouldn't have said that, but it's not actually anything close.
I see it in my comment section all the time. They're like, because you talk about these games, this is the reason the devs release. I'm like, you really think?
To the extent that they're serious, they're jokers. They're bonkers.
You really think? I have less than 2,000 people subscribe to me. You really think the devs are going, did you hear what 30 and Still Gaming just said about our game? Oh, God, this is why we're delayed.
Bad juju out into the universe, and the secret in the negative way. Oh no.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. There is, I think, though, an odd relationship with delays, and a question from chat gets at this. He said, Halo was delayed and it turned out bad. What about Starfield? I do think delays create an unspoken tension. It's like, hey, the longer you delay it and the more you delay it, the better the game better be, because people are going to say, hey, it better be perfect. You made us wait all this time. It better be flawless. It better be amazing. It creates this undercurrent of passive hype and expectation heightening. So a delay, I am totally in favor of delaying games. Do it.
Absolutely.
I'm tired of games coming out and running poorly or not being complete. But I also know it creates pressure, undue pressure maybe, on the devs to like deliver something that they might not even be able to deliver, especially in the creation engine. Like, we know that a Bethesda game is going to have rough edges.
Look at Skull and Bones. It's been delayed 6 times. Are you telling me right now, when it does come out, if that game is not super flawless, that if there's one problem, be like, why did you delay it 6 times up to this point, and then release it and it's still broken, buggy, right? Like, when you delay something, fine, delay it as long as you want. But when you delay something, everyone's like, oh, they're delaying it because they're polishing it. They're fixing the game. It's going to come out flawless. And then it comes out and you're like, the hell did you delay it for? Right? And then they start getting angry about it. Sorry, go ahead.
It's a pretty safe bet that it will be better because of the delay. So kind of one of the things I'm curious about is like, after X number of delays, 3 delays, 5, 6, however many delays the game gets, if they were to be like, well, yeah, but guess what it would have looked like had we put it out back when we said we were going to.
Right.
Like, you should see the absolute bad situation it was.
I think this is bad. You should have saw it a year ago.
They should release they should release one of those vertical cut builds. Like, this is what we had ready the day it was supposed to come out originally. You should you got to see this and let somebody play it on a stream just once and be like, oh, well, thank you for the game that we think is garbage now, because it's still so much better than what you would have given us 18 months ago.
Right. Christopher Wright with a $10 super chat tip says, I'm not convinced that Xbox is concerned about releasing great games because everything is day and date on Game Pass. Like you all have said, Game Pass is lowering the quality of games. See, there's a danger, though, I think, in pushing that axiom too far. I think Game Pass can gloss over a low-quality game because people are like, yeah, whatever. But I don't necessarily know if I agree with Game Pass actively as a causality lowering the quality of games. I could see Microsoft saying, get this thing out the door, we just need to have it on the Game Pass runner. But eventually that's going to be a snake eating its tail. Like, well, now Game Pass is going to look bad if you keep just shoveling garbage onto it, especially if it's a first-party game. Like, I don't think that works long term. I know Mike was getting at that, but maybe, what do you think of my pushback? I don't see Microsoft doing that long term because, again, that's a snake eating its tail.
I think at this point, though, you are the frog in the pot, right? So you're being trained and conditioned to being like, hey, this water's nice and comfortable, and then they're burning you alive. And I think Game Pass at this point, because it's still in its infancy of what it is, and they keep putting games out because they're rushing games to get it on to Game Pass, because first-party titles is what sells, right? And if you look at all the games that are successful right now on Game Pass that are continuously ongoing, you got ESO before they bought them, but it was on ESO. ESO is there. Minecraft Dungeons, Minecraft itself. You got State of Decay 2. You have Flight Simulator. All of these, Sea of Thieves. You have all of these games on here that are single player / co-op / PvP / microtransactions, keep coming back every single week, events, something along the lines that keep making you come back. Then you have these single player games that are now to start coming out, where Fable was a single player game, Halo was a single player game, and they're putting it on this. Starfield's a single player game. They're starting to put these on Game Pass because they have to have the value. That's where they want the value. And I think we get so used to it that the games that come out that are broken, buggy, or just mediocre, and they put them on Game Pass, you're like, oh, it sets a standard. Like, if you look at Netflix, or if you look at other streaming services that's been out for decades, you look at some of the movies and shows that are on there, and majority of those shows and movies are just subpar. They used to be the bargain bin inside Walmart for the DVDs, and now they're on Netflix, and that's part of the content loop, right? Mm-hmm. You're only looking for that one hit to bring you into Netflix, or 2 hits, or that one show, and then everything else is just kind of cannon fodder for the service to look like it's something. And that's what Game Pass is in its infancy. They're trying to get games out to fill it up. They're trying to get third-party games to fill it up, to get that value. And then now, 3-4 years later, we're just used to games of being subpar and mediocre. And now you're just used to it. You're like, oh, it's on Game Pass. I mean, right now, even when games look, first thing that someone says when you see a game, you're like, is that coming on to Game Pass? Like, that's the mentality right now. It's exponentially getting faster and faster.
Yeah, there's elements to Game Pass that I think are hinging on the ABK deal, because Detective Seeds is saying he thinks the Activision deal goes through, but if it doesn't, he's like, they're gonna have to pull AAA games from being day one on Game Pass. I don't know though. I think they're gonna test this year just how commercially successful they can be with. You can play Redfall day one on Game Pass, or you can buy the awesome edition, the awesome version. You can buy it and play early. So they're trying to foster an ecosystem where you do feel motivated to buy a game at full price and play it early. So then the people on Game Pass are actually playing it a couple days after you because they don't want to buy it. So I don't know. I'm anxious to see how that plays out. They did that with Forza. Because people were asking, do you think Starfield's going to sell as many copies as Hogwarts or Spider-Man? I'm like, there's no way to know. 25 to 30 million people don't have to buy Starfield. So how do you measure its commercial success against a game like The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom or Final Fantasy 16, where everybody's going to be buying it at full price? Now, something else that I really want to have you guys interact with, because we are talking about Xbox in 2023, and this is related in brand confidence. I feel like we're getting this rewritten history with Halo Infinite lately, and Viceroy was in chat saying for 2 months people were singing its praises and loving it, and they just failed to deliver on the live service model. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was disappointed trashing the game and running negative coverage like a week after it came out because it was so disappointing. Like, everyone's running to the Metacritic score because the Metacritic score is on the campaign, and the campaign was arguably good, but it was also missing base level features like co-op and the ability to replay missions. And now everyone's acting like I don't know. I don't get where this revisionist history is coming from. Everyone's telling me that, like, the pro Halo, pro Xbox guys are like, Halo Infinite was awesome at launch. They just failed to deliver on the live service rhythm. They didn't come out with content fast enough. I'm like, that's not true. Like,
right.
Where do you I want Derek to take this one first. Where is this coming from? Why are people now, and I pushed back the other day and I said, so you're basically making 343 and Microsoft look worse. They launched a golden egg and then just shattered it on the ground. Like, I don't think it's true, but even if it is true, it makes them look worse.
Well, I think part of it is that it's really easy, especially if it's a game that you've been playing this franchise for a decade or longer, and the game comes out and the campaign is, by almost all reports, excellent, or at least really fun, really engaging. The Halo fan is like, oh yeah, finally I'm playing. I've got another story as a Master Chief or whatever. That joy of getting the new story mode campaign and that gives you another bit of the lore that you didn't know was going to happen next. I think it turns into nostalgia really quickly. In this case, 6 months later, it's a nostalgia thing. No, this game came out and it was awesome because they had an awesome experience with that piece of the game. And maybe they weren't, and so they don't remember, or it wasn't till later in their mind that they're like, oh, but this other stuff was disappointing. There was no Forge. Or, well, yeah, I couldn't play split screen, but I really don't have any buddies who live in my nearby anyway, so like I haven't been in the dorms playing split screen for 10 years anyhow, so I didn't really miss it. So they kind of dismiss the negatives and just remember the really positive bit where, that first 10 hours was magical. So the game came out and everything was fine. Combine that with how many of the original reviews that were saying 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, if you read them, they were like, this part sucks, this part sucks, this part sucks, this part's missing, this part's broken, 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, we went back and watched my coverage of that. It was like I was reading reviews that were mediocre, that were middling, and then they gave it a 9. And I was like, well, I don't understand. You just talked about it as if it was kind of disappointing or missing features or not that great, and then you gave it a raving score. Like, Mike, what do you make of this? Like, I feel like Halo failed in so many other ways. They didn't just fail to deliver on content rhythm.
No, they failed to me from the very start because I've played every single Halo co-op with my brother, every single one, the story, and you couldn't do that when the game came out. To me, right from the start, that's an L in their column.
I
right?
can imagine the letdown. If we had played a franchise together, every single release, we'd played that together. You're on the other side of me. You and I together? Come on. And then to be like, oh man, this is hype. We're going to do that. We're going to play this game. It's coming out tomorrow. And then be like, oh, unbelievable.
And then on top of that, they failed on the multiplayer part because Forge wasn't in the game, right? Like they've missed things that were supposed to have always been that we got used to. Now, obviously, it's their game. They can take what they want in and out of that game, but when you expect from Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ODST, all these games, and then you're like, yeah, no. Did Halo 5 have co-op? It did, not at launch. And that's another reason I didn't play Halo 5 at launch. They put it in a couple of months after, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Well, if the co-op's not ready, we can play in the Forge. If the co-op's not ready, we can go onto the same server and play in a matchmake event with, at least we're playing together. None of that you could do, as far as I know, when Infinite came out. Anything you would have wanted to do with your brother or your good buddy was, for the most part, completely locked up or not even available yet, right?
Yeah. So they've lost me as a fan because
you're done.
It wasn't ready at launch, and I'm like, well, that's a fail. Sure, it's on Game Pass. I'm sure the campaign's great. I haven't played it. I have no interest in it because they had no interest in doing what they were that they did in the past. So they said their words, not mine, not going to make or break the franchise. Well, it broke it for me. I played the multiplayer, and I was like, you know what? It's okay. It's just another Halo, but it's also lost its identity. And now there's articles coming out that said that they never had DLC plan for the expansions and stuff. And I'm like, really? I was like, because I remember an article when you guys said that you wanted to make it like Destiny way back when, right? When they said that the game was supposed to come out, and it was supposed to have these online, and they were constantly going to update it and stuff. And then all magically that went bye-bye. And they took, 2/3? I forget what Schreier said, out of the map or whatever. Yeah. And they changed the complete what it was because it was overwhelming. Bungie couldn't even do it correctly. There's no way in hell 343 was going to try to do an online service game like that. So they backed off and said it wasn't going to happen. And I think Duplass brought it up in my chat the other day. He said they even have a trademark for DLC called The Endless, I believe is what he wrote yesterday. So they trademark stuff to put DLC in this game, and they're like, oh yeah, we never thought about putting DLC in this game, which is just a lie, straight up lie.
I think that was a misunderstanding of timelines, because I know like Jason Schreier and Jez Corden pushed back against that. They're like, well, there were no DLC plans that were scrapped. That is false, because they were pushing back on the notion that when the layoffs happened, the result of the layoffs were, oh, now we're scrapping DLC and campaign plans. The DLC and campaign plans were scrapped when Bonnie Ross was let go and Pierre came in, and I think at that point Joseph Staten was basically told, we're not doing this, because Joseph Staten said in a trailer, you're going to be doing missions as your Spartan. You're going to go out and have these experiences as your Spartan, and that's where the Destiny theories came from. And then Brad Sams, who gets inside information, said they wanted this thing to be like a Destiny game. It failed to hit every metric, and that's when they scrapped all the plans. And I think people thought that once that resurfaced from that one tweet thread, people are like, well, this isn't the result of the layoffs. The layoffs is just that they're laying off people on the campaign team. Well, of course they are. That's the side of the game that got gutted as far as future plans.
Do you think they're going to kind of get their stuff together and continue making Halo Infinite like actual campaign DLC? They're like kind of like seeing what the feedback is, what people pushing back on this, or do you think they just make the next Halo game in the next 3 to 4 years?
Oh yeah, I don't. Go ahead, Derek.
Well, I always make the joke that the next game is going to be called The Halo.
Halo.
Honestly, I do think that's the most likely best case scenario for the future for them, is that there's another game later that isn't Infinite. Just get away, they can do what's right in the meantime, support it in whatever ways they feel they should, or that the community demands more or less to keep playing it for now to make it not a total waste or a total failure. I kind of hope that there's a lot of behind the scenes footage, or that somebody was planning for a documentary someday, because there'd be a really cool point in like the 90-minute docu series about what happened with Halo 6, where like they play the last person to say, oh yeah, it's a 10-year plan, and if they've got the footage and the clips and to work your way backwards in the timeline as to where that idea came from, and to find the first person who was like, oh yeah, this game's gonna last a decade, and then have that like find the very first person, the patient zero who had this idea, and then of course it doesn't, and then fast forward back to the present, and it's like 22 months later the game was dead.
They pause it when he says 10-year plan, and it pauses on his face, and he's like this, and then all of a sudden it's like, dun, 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 and that's when he knew he screwed up, right?
I agree with the idea, not of doing the documentary. That would be hilarious. I agree that they've got to move on. I said when the layoff announcements came out, and they said that campaign team got hit the hardest, and now reports are claiming 1/4 of the staff is gone. I don't know if that means 1/4 is gone from where they were before the layoffs, or just in total from when they were in production. Whatever the case may be. I said Halo Infinite's going to get EOL, but this time next year they'll be saying, we're not supporting the game any longer with new content. Servers will be online for 48 more months or something, and then they need to move plans to the next thing. Certain Affinity is apparently building the Battle Royale, but other studios I think are going to come into support. The only way that 343 makes good on their claim that they're going to continue to be the ones developing Halo is if the hiring freeze gets removed, like if we see a bunch of job postings.
I saw the joke in the chat. Zubair has the joke. Who's been the president of Xbox for all this, for the most of the Infinite time? Like the one guy whose fault it is mostly. At the
Phil
top.
Spencer?
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
So yeah, the documentary cuts to Phil Spencer, head in his hands. I deserve this.
I deserve this.
So I have an idea that just popped in my head. What about if because of Game Pass and because of Halo, they can't wait 4 to 5 more years to wait for the next Halo game, right? They need something to. What about if there's a company or a studio behind the scenes that they just throw it at? If Certain Infinity is working on the Battle Royale, what about if they're working on something that's like Destiny-esque, and instead of a campaign DLC, they now just implement the ODST model where you make your own Spartan, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden now you go back into the same world because they're using the assets and whatnot, and they make it sort of like a grind fest of loot and whatnot, and they kind of implement it already in Halo. Now, I'm not saying it's going to revive it, but that would keep Halo on the forefront of people's minds going, oh, you know what, this is pretty good. It gives them an idea of where they could go with it in the future. I just feel like it's a waste, right? A complete waste. You built this open world of Halo. It's called Halo Infinite, meaning they could do, they could do whatever they want. Right?
That could be part of the documentary too. The first person be like, let's call it Infinite.
Right. They have a trademark. It's called The Endless, right? For campaign, meaning this was supposed to be some sort of live service aspect. So do you think they maybe speak to Bethesda and go, how did you do it with Fallout 76? And I know people are going to laugh about this, but that 4 years later, that's an ongoing game that's constantly being supported and millions of people are playing it, and it's got microtransactions and it's on Game Pass, right? It's one of the more popular games that's on Game Pass. So could they do something like that with Halo Infinite, kind of like a 180, like, hey, we got a Battle Royale, we got the multiplayer. Oh, and by the way, we have this open world beta test type of thing that you could test out. Let us know what you guys think about it, type of thing. I don't know.
They should just immediately stop using words that are unfulfillable.
Infinite, endless.
Don't call your game Infinite. Don't have an enemy that's called the Endless who never shows up. Let's have an enemy called the Unkillable. And then 2 hours in, they're dead. Good idea. Greenlight it. Call it the Halo. The Unkillable is coming.
The Halo.
And after the first half of the campaign, the Unkillable is dead. 9 out of 10.
It was such a surprising turn of events.
The Metacritic score says it's good.
I was disappointed. 10 out of 10. There's a part of me that wonders if they could pull everything that got scrapped out of the heap. The 2/3 of the map, 2/3 of the open world. I always said that, the armor cores, the reason that the armor cores were so different is they were going to end up being classes That's why their customization was just so different. They were going to have abilities and skills and stuff. Because even in the game, when you're adding to your skill tree as Master Chief, you're using Spartan cores to do that. And I think that's what they were going to do. So, yeah, I'm in firm belief that they have a world, a universe, they've got lore that could do open world, add on, have skill trees, have loot, have weapons, RPG elements for sure, 100%. I think they could do it. My biggest concern at this point would be that when a horse is this limp, you've got to go with a different horse, or you've got to spend a ton of money. You know what I'm saying? Like when the dev team, how are we confident in 343 at this point? They are a fraction of the size that they once were, and even at their most employees, this is what we got from them. Like, so what sort of money and funding would it take to actually get a legit full-orbed next-gen Halo Infinite or Halo game out the door? Where's the money going to come from?
I mean, like I said, they have all these assets already, and they have plenty of studios behind the scenes that could potentially help out or do something to maybe give ideas or something. I mean, they have 38, 42 studios before Activision. I forget what it is. They're all either making a game, or they're supporting a game, or helping along with the game. And they're also asking for ideas from other studios, like, hey, we're doing this. Can you guys help us? Because you know how the net code is for this. You guys have worked with this engine. Can you help us with this? They have all these tools, and they have this game sitting here that was supposed to be a live service game that's not right now. So I don't know. I just feel like it would be a waste of 4 years if they didn't try something with this. Because again, even if they do try it, it's not going to make or break the franchise. They can test out and try to do different things with this thing until the next game does come out. Am
I understanding your idea to be that they should take a game that's already almost finished and kind of slap Halo on it, or am I misunderstanding what you're...
No. I'm saying they already have these assets already for the game Halo Infinite. They made this giant map. They cut 2/3 of the game. There was like a whole bunch of stuff they already had for this game, right? So you're just going to take what's there, and
you're saying take the stuff off the cutting room floor and release it.
Cutting room floor, and even the stuff that's out right now. Like, you could build in like quests and different things to open up that world that you're running around in Halo Infinite.
Director's cut.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Maybe. I mean,
if
it's playable. Yeah. If it's playable.
I would think you got that much stuff that you built, use it. That there is the question about the engine too. With the Slipspace engine. And this does touch on, Xbox in 2023 as an idea and as a discussion topic. We now have a very, very, I think, measurable track record of what Microsoft's policies can do to a project with the contractual issue. So many former 343 employees weighed in on this that, a lot of them are working at Respawn. So look at the talent loss right there. You got guys saying, I would have loved to have stayed on, and now they're over at Respawn working on Apex, which is one of the more respected, successful shooters in the market right now. So right. You lost your talent to a really successful game. They're not over there working on some dinky title. They're working on one of the bigger titles right now. And if we're looking beyond Redfall and Starfield, which were largely developed not underneath that, I want to know, like, when we look at like Mojang or Mojang, if you look at Mojang, who makes Minecraft with Minecraft Legends, are they operating under that policy? Is Bethesda going to slowly have to operate under that policy? Like, for people that don't know, Microsoft doesn't want to pay people benefits. So what they do is if you're on a contract, you can only work for 18 months. That way they don't have to pay you benefits. And then you can't come back and work for 6 months after that. And it caused massive problems at 343. This is confirmed by former employees at this point. It's not just like conjecture or presumption. They're like, no, it was terrible. It hurt the project. So, Xbox in 2023 and beyond, if Microsoft doesn't budge on this policy, I was like, man, oh man, what about the next Elder Scrolls? What about Fallout 5? What about any of these titles? I was really hoping in the wake of all this news that Microsoft was going to actually talk about it and do something.
Do you think if the Battle Royale comes out for Halo, do you think that's going to ruin the brand of what Halo is? I mean, obviously, Halo's always been about the campaign and the PvP, red versus blue type of stuff. Do you think if the Battle Royale comes out, if it's not top notch and it's competing against Apex Legends and Warzone and Fortnite.
Well, they've already stretched the definition of the
No, I know, but what I'm saying,
franchise a
yeah,
few times.
sure. But do you think that's gonna save Halo if if a battle royale comes out?
Yeah, if it's good enough, maybe. They should call it Halo Undefined. They should start using words that are too big to be accurate, but using negative ones. The new enemies, the invasion force is called the Worthless. Just be honest about it. It's all garbage.
The issue with the BR, I think, is that the BR market is super saturated.
Yeah.
So what's your hook? Because a lot of people were talking about it with me one day, and we got into a pretty heated debate about it because they were describing just Halo on a really, really big map. And I'm like, so instead of it being big team battle, it's like giant team battle. So it's like it needs a hook. It needs something to make it stand out.
So you mean it's Battlefield, but now...
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think a Halo BR is going to have some kind of a hook, have to have something to make it stand out. Because if not, if it just feels like I'm playing Halo on an enormous map, and if I die, I'm out, right? That's the whole point of a battle royale. That's why they're so addictive, because there's that huge risk reward potential. I just don't know. I have severe doubts about them being able to do it and to really shine in a market where there are so many people already dedicated to some of the BRs that are out there. Now, Smashville is going to maybe take us into a different direction here with a $20 tip. He says, what did the European Union find Microsoft guilty of? I don't know. The commission concluded that Microsoft broke EU competition law by leveraging its near monopoly in the PC operating system market to gain advantages in the markets. Oh, so he's talking about, okay, so that's very, very much not related. We can't go down that road. I think they're debating in chat about the ABK deal and things that, the EU is questioning and things that the FTC are questioning. We're not really on that right now. I guess we could ask the question for Microsoft and Xbox in 2023, like, do you think the deal goes through, Mike, this ABK deal?
I think 100% it goes through.
Okay.
100%.
Why?
I just feel like the EU and stuff is looking and they're trying to find something. And yeah, sure, they can say that the Bethesda thing had exclusivity and they can use that against them. But at the same time, we talked about this, I think, last week a little bit. I don't see if Microsoft doesn't buy Activision, Activision's just going to stay as Activision Blizzard. I don't think they're going to do a fire sale and sell off. So I think Microsoft already knows they're already striking deals with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty. They're already striking deals with Steam to bring Call of Duty. They're already making these deals. I think their guys know this is just the hoops they have to jump through, and it's going to go through regardless. They can't stop the runaway train here.
Yeah, I just don't know. With NVIDIA and Google weighing in about cloud and mobile, I've got a feeling China is going to have some pretty big reservations about the mobile impact, because the argument I made the other day, Microsoft has demonstrated they're totally willing to use the cloud to get around the mobile stores, like they did that for Fortnite. So it's like,
you talked about this last week.
I did. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to repeat that then. Yeah, we are kind of stepping on the show last week. What did we talk about last week? We talked about the layoffs.
Yeah, we talked about layoffs and the buyout and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we got on that subject. Out of all the titles that are potentially coming this year, Mike, which is the one do you think has the greatest potential and has more of your attention?
Are you talking Microsoft, like Xbox, or are you talking about just in general?
No, straight up Xbox. Oh,
straight up Xbox. Well, the 5 games that we saw, I'm not a big Forza Motorsport guy. I like Forza Horizon because it's more wide open. This will sound weird. I'm not a Souls guy, right? I'm not a Bloodborne guy, but when Elden Ring came out, I liked Elden Ring because it opened up and I liked free roaming and doing all that stuff, right? The Forza game, there's single player, but it's really strictly on like races. But Forza Horizon was like opened up. I could go where I want, drive and do what I want, just have fun smashing into stuff, racing friends, racing random people. Like, that opened it up for me. So I'm not a big Forza Motorsports guy. It looks great, looks beautiful. I think people are going to have a great time with that. Minecraft Legends, seems interesting to me, but at the same time, when they start talking about the more of PvP aspect of it, because it's PvPvE, I kind of got turned off a little bit of it. Obviously, I'll try it because I'm a fan of what they've done with Minecraft Dungeons, so I'll try Minecraft Legends as well. The big one that I'm interested in, minus Starfield, because Starfield obviously we're gonna play, but is Redfall. I'm kind of lost on Redfall, right? I'm hyped for it, but at the same time, after watching what they showed for Redfall, I'm more concerned now than I was before they showed that. I don't know if that makes sense, but I was just like going in, I was going, you know, I'm pretty excited for Redfall, but then I saw it and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm excited anymore. I know you're asking me what am I excited for, but out of the 5 games, I was really excited for Redfall to see what it is, but between the co-op, between the way they showed the mission kind of layout, what the type of game it is, with the 4-player co-op, but single player, and how they've managed that, I don't know, man. They say it's like a Far Cry, but when I looked at that trailer the other day, I went, it looks like Dead Island. It reminds me of Dead Island, but with guns instead of what you did in Dead Island with the melee weapons. You level up your character. You're trying to clean out certain sections and whatnot of the. I don't know. So Xbox. I mean, obviously Starfield would be the one that I'm excited for if it comes out this year. But if besides that, it would be Redfall. But I'm still skeptic of it, man. And the only reason I'm okay with it is because guess what, guys? It's on Game Pass.
For those just getting here, the TLDR for Mike's answer was 0.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. There is
no
zero games that I'm
There's
excited
no games,
for from
I'm sure.
Xbox.
Yeah.
Because I kind of answered it earlier. I said I'm more excited for Hogwarts. I'm more excited for Star Wars Survivors than I am anything that's coming out.
Yeah.
Well, the weird thing for me with Redfall is I don't actually have to worry about the things that I'm critical of, because if my wife and I get the game and play it, we'll only ever play together. But their decisions with co-op and the synchronization of the saves or whatever, I'm like, that's a huge deal breaker for me. Okay, well, let's ignore that. Let's just look at the gameplay. I don't understand why they keep doing showcases like this, where it's this slow plotting movement.
I hate that. Like,
and they go real slow, and they don't
a game like that.
and they don't aim the weapon. Like the first piece of combat they showed, they're showing how like these they're higher level vampires that close off the area, and you have to beat them to get out. You're like, oh, this is going to be kind of an intense fight. And he just like slowly sidesteps and walks over, and is hip firing a fully automatic weapon, just bam, 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 bam. And I'm like, why? It doesn't look intense. Now later in the gameplay showcase, they started showing like aiming down sight, rapid fire. That looks pretty good. But when you show your gameplay like that, you refuse to move quickly, you refuse to ADS, which is aim down sight, you don't aim the weapons. I'm over it at this point. I'm like, I know why you're doing it. And I'm also saying it makes your gameplay look boring and just plodding and slow instead of something that's exciting and fast moving. And with 4 people in Redfall, 4 different characters, 4 different classes, it's ripe for just fun shooting with your buds, like 4 players. Now, when he said Dead Island, like Derek, you made a face. With Redfall, they are kind of dialing in that zombie trope. Is that going to hurt the game feeling like a zombie trope, even though they're vampires?
If they feel like the same kind of... I mean, it depends if you play a zombie game for the story versus a vampire game for that. You like that lore better, or if they both just act like kind of waves of enemies with not much strategy in your in your combat against them. You're just mowing down the hordes, so to speak. If it's the same, so and there are people in the chat that are like, yeah, that game's great. Okay, cool. Then you'll have fun with your zombie version of Dead Island. For me, that's a hard pass immediately. Like, the games like that are just, they're a little fun if I'm on the couch with my sister or my brother or my buddy, and maybe we're having beers. But to actually put time in to sit and play by myself, heck no. It's not my style at all.
I noticed yesterday when I was watching the video, there's a moment where they pull out the map, right? And you can see the map, and there's another moment in the trailer where they're in like the HQ or whatever, and they turn and there's a big whiteboard, and then there's a bigger map, right? And then there's a square covering up what looks like to be the map that you're playing in the game, or perhaps that moment in the game. What do you think about, because it's on Game Pass, do you think it's going to be a games of service, or do you think it's going to be it's not a one and done because there's 4 characters, you can play it 4 different times, but do you think it's going to be a closed circuit game where you play it, you beat it, you put it down type of thing, or do you think the map is going to get bigger and bigger over time? They're going to open up other sections as free DLC or paid DLC. Again, they've never said anything about microtransactions or anything. So
there is a battle pass. I'm fairly certain as well. Hilly spied out if you order the deluxe edition on Steam, it talks about 2 more characters are coming.
So there is new characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, maybe it's old artwork. I don't know if maybe they scrapped those plans and that's on Steam and shouldn't be there. But that Hilly said that he saw that. Like, oh, if you order the deluxe edition, there's 2 more characters coming. With Borderlands, you would pick a whole new character and start all the way over, right? And there was great reasons to do that. And with this game, I think the question would be, was the content loop so enjoyable that you want to experience it again from a completely new perspective? And I just worry we haven't seen much to convince me of that. Now, it sounds great on paper. They started describing what you're going to do, and there's these vampire gods that they just give us a tease of at the end. Oh, that's great. Like having that hierarchy of enemies.
Sounds like Endgame. Yeah, it sounds like Endgame, right?
Yeah, Endgame, clearing an area, having really big, awesome boss fights. Like, this is going to be dope. But then I just keep coming back to that co-op snag, and I'm like, God, like I think that's going to irritate people because it's Game Pass games. So all you and your boys are going to get on. Yeah, let's get on and play. And only one of you gets your progress saved. You keep your loot, by the way, and you level up. So it's like, so I got to go back into my game as a level 5 and go play a bunch of level 1 missions. Like, I don't know. I think that's going to be a huge snag. I just kept saying I really hope they come out before the game comes out and says day 1 patch, we're addressing that, because it's grating against what I can see as the potential that the game offers as a fun co-op game with buds. I think that the co-op synchronization decision grates against that and makes it a hard game to approach. And then when you ask, like, oh, play it multiple times and add on, that I think falls apart for the same reason.
Is there any other major games, third party or even on PlayStation in May, that are coming out to compete with that? Does anybody know in chat, or you guys?
What do you? What games coming out on, like, other platforms?
Yeah, other platforms, even third-party games that are coming out, like, to compete against Redfall. Because I feel like Redfall's business model would be to get it out and then have DLCs as fast as possible to come out to keep it going.
We don't know what Sony's cadence is right now, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's any other games coming out like that, because I love games like that. I really do. I love. I don't have a second Xbox. I've got 2 PlayStations, so I am kind of bummed it's an Xbox exclusive. So I'll have to see if they've got crossplay with PC, because I got 2 TVs in the living room, and I love playing games like that.
I see one. Suicide Squads comes out the same month, at the end of the month. It comes out on the 26th, and that could be pretty much the same type of game, right? And Dead Island 2 comes out literally the same week as Redfall. So there's a couple of games that are like-minded, feel like anyway, where you can play co-op or single player. Suicide Squad's going to be a 4-player co-op. So I don't know. I don't know where Redfall. What was that?
With endless, like, similar style of game where you have the endless waves of these enemies that all kind of look the same. Like, I don't. Okay, that's to have more than 1 or 2 games that do the same thing. I don't know that the audience is big enough.
I was asked recently about Dead Island 2, and I said I just don't know if I can stomp on another zombie's head. Just gets this. I watched it, and it looks graphically dope. It does. It looks cool, and he swings the axe and he blasts a head, and then he stomps on a head, and it's one of those things where it's not their fault. By the way, I still believe they can make a great game. I think it's almost impossible for me to play that game and to say, oh, I've never played this game before. I ran into that with Gears, not the latest Gears, the Gears right before. I got maybe 2 hours in and said, I've played this game before. And then I felt like they innovated really, really well on the most recent Gears game, which, that's a win for Microsoft. That's one of their properties. I thought, this is great. you could do things with Jack. It was more open world. Like it had really, really good innovative
When
feel
did that
to
come
it.
out?
When did the last Gears come out? I can't even remember. It was Gears 5?
2019, I think, is when it came out.
In a minute.
Yeah, it has.
So
It
that's
has.
Kind of my.
And their nose down. Yeah, September of 2019. I thought Gears 5 was fantastic. And the Coalition came out and said their nose down. They're converting all their assets to Unreal 5 for their next game. So, that's a concern about the zombie trope, about the zombie games, even about a vampire game is, am I going to feel like, oh, I've played this game. I've played this game before. I've killed these enemies before. Because I kind of got excited from what they were saying in the Redfall showcase. You go into an area, you clear everything out. You clear out this boss, that boss, and it leads to a god, a vampire god.
The vampire god, yeah.
I got excited. I thought, man, this kind of sounds... I'm surprised they haven't referenced Borderlands, because there's loot, there's tiers of loot, there's colors for characters.
They talked about the loot very, they breezed over it, right? They said there's different things you can add, the different stakes that you can add to your gun, the different powers that you can put. But I just feel like they still haven't said enough about it, and that game's gonna live or die on the combat, right? Like if the combat doesn't feel good and there's not enough loot to grab, then basically you're just playing the character as is, and you're like, okay, this is that. What one of the characters had the umbrella ability, where she was shooting out the purple umbrella, and sure, that's good for the one playthrough. But then, are the characters so much fun that you're gonna play through, like you said earlier, 4 times or 6 times if they add the 2 other characters if you get the... I don't know. I feel like that loop has to... The combat's got to feel good, and what they showed for the combat doesn't look like it's good. It looked very kind of clunky, but that's the way they were playing. They were slow, methodical, kind of hip shooting. They weren't doing... It just seemed... It didn't sell me, and I was disappointed with it. Again, I'm interested in it, but they didn't sell me on that trailer.
Well, and somebody kind of gave me pushback in chat. They said, oh, they go slow like that so you can see everything. Listen, I think at this point, we know that, and that's okay. You can do slow camera pans. You can do slow movement. Awesome. Let me see the graphics. But when you're going to show me gameplay in action, show me gameplay in action. Like, I want to see what it's going to look like when I play it. Not somebody who's playing like a geriatric who's having a hard time moving quickly. It's like, why are they moving like this? It doesn't... I think it does a disservice to the gameplay. I can't imagine somebody working on the gunplay and the combat being like, that doesn't even look like what it's going to play when you play it.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It's like, when you're trying to show someone something, you're like, I don't know, you're taking a basketball and you're like, hey, look, watch this shot I can make, and you go out and you miss, and you're like, hold on a second, let me just do it again. Let me do it again. I messed up. Like, you're making excuses for something that they're doing. Like, they're trying to show you a game, and they're trying to show you how good it is, but at the same time, they're underselling what the game is, because it's a shooter, first-person shooter game. I want to see what the first-person shooter game can do and what it looks like, and to me, it was very blah.
Yeah. Now, with this Hi-Fi Rush thing, the ghost drop. I had somebody say, and I thought this was an interesting comment. They said, man, this is how Game Pass should work. It's perfect for ghost drops. It's perfect for play it right now on Game Pass.
Yep.
Do you think we'll see a rise in this on Game Pass? Just total out of left field surprise drops? And is that... Because I started thinking about that. I was like, that's actually kind of brilliant, because then it creates this unknown FOMO. I don't want to be off Game Pass. They might drop something. They might drop it. They dropped that game, and that game was so awesome. And I didn't have to go sign up again. Where, is the ghost drop... And then this makes me start thinking about Starfield, right? Everybody's like, oh, Starfield's going to get ghost dropped in March. And I'm like, get out of here. But then I'm like, wait.
They could.
This is... I actually agreed with them. I was like, that actually is pretty smart to say Game Pass is perfect for ghost drops.
I've been saying it for about 2 weeks now after I watched an interview with Todd Howard 3 years ago with IGN. He was talking about how... they dropped Fallout 76 and it was 5 months, and he said he wanted to do it earlier, like sooner, up maybe even a week, and he said don't quote me on it, right? obviously it's a little out of context, but a tweet sent by Phil Spencer today, right? Or is it today? I think it's today. He responded. Guy asked any thoughts on comments and extremely positive reactions on the shadow drop, and Phil Spencer came out and said all credit goes to Tango Gameworks as they have the idea to build something new. Shadow drop was from Bethesda. Okay, it's fun to have some positive surprises. Xbox Game Pass makes the shadow drop easy. It won't be right for all games, but awesome reaction to Hi-Fi, right? So it came from Bethesda. Bethesda was like, let's do the shadow drop. And think about this. If they built up this game, Wi-Fi Rush, and they're like, this is what the game is. It's an animated thing. And this is it. And they built it up for weeks and weeks and weeks. And they told you a release date, and then it got delayed, right? You had no expectations for this game whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, they just drop it. I don't know if they do the same thing for Starfield, but they could. And that's why I said in the very beginning of the show, I said, they do their show in June, and they show you what Starfield is. And then at the end of that showcase, they're like, and guess what? You can play it right now. People would lose their minds. They would be like, oh my God. And then you get some people like, why didn't you get to pre-order the collector's edition or whatnot, which you still could probably buy. But we live in a different world now. It's digital, right? It's all digital. They could just drop it and you can start playing. You would be super hyped about that. And then it would get so many more people to sign up for Game Pass, right? Because the stores are closed. They're gonna drop it out in the middle of the evening, and you're like, oh God, I can't get to the. But you can get Game Pass. And you can play it right away. You know?
Yeah. Derek, what do you think about ghost drops as a practice and a policy? Because you don't market, you don't promote. There's no trailers. You're almost trusting virality. You're trusting the internet to sort of back you. And this game got backed right away. Tweets were positive. It's climbing the Steam charts. Like, what is this? What's your take on a ghost drop? It's risky, but it's worked a couple of times for some games recently.
I love a lot of things about just the idea of the ghost drop. Like, I like the idea of cutting down on this endless 6 to 12 months anticipatory, let's all talk about this thing that's not coming out yet and make up our ideas for what we think is going to happen, and it's all for naught because the game doesn't come out then for another year and a half, and most of the things that we guessed about are not anywhere close to being true. Do a ghost drop, a game that we didn't have any time to talk about or debate about, or this is the rumor. No, it's just, here's the game. Go play it. So now what you say is actually the game that we have now. I love that idea. I like that it's disruptive. I like that it gets hype in a much more natural way. Like,
yeah,
when the movie comes out that nobody knows about because there was no marketing budget, and then everybody goes nuts, you got to go see this movie.
Right.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. And the hype then is a much more, what do we call it, organic. It feels more natural because it wasn't just commercials on the Super Bowl. It was, dude, you got to try this, and then you try it, and then you tell somebody else, dude, you got to try this, or hey, this game just came out. Nobody knew it. It's off everybody's radar, and that's by design. I find that to be pretty appealing for a lot of reasons.
Real quick, but Starfield is not really a shadow drop. We know so much information. We knew nothing about Wi-Fi. We knew nothing
I like
about this game.
I'm speaking when we know nothing. With a game where we already know all the stuff we've been waiting for, if they were to just surprise us by making the most recent delay less delayed than we thought it would be, well, you know,
my
that's
answer
a nice
was
little gift, I
towards
guess.
chat, because they're like, there's no way they would do it in Starfield. They wouldn't shadow drop. They're not shadow dropping. We've literally passed the date it was supposed to launch, November last year, and now it's coming out sometime in the first half of this year. So if they say it's out tomorrow, you would be like, oh my God, it's coming out tomorrow, right? Like, you wouldn't care. So it's not really shadow dropping a game. You know everything, what the graphics look like, what the gameplay looks like you know everything about Starfield. It's got 1,000 planets, it's got 250,000 dialogue. We knew nothing about Wi-Fi.
Don't complain about your early Christmas present.
Hi-Fi.
That's an early Christmas present, and you're just mad that you were supposed to get it for Christmas in 2020.
That's right. Yeah.
Wi-Fi Rush is a very different game.
Rush.
Very
it's the sequel to High Five. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a bunch of people rushing around trying to connect to Wi-Fi. There's too many people.
That's a great game.
The password on your placard is wrong. I've typed it in 6 times. It's wrong.
You're running into a donut shop. What's the password?
The password is wrong.
Wi-Fi Rush.
It's an AR game on your phone as you're running around Starbucks.
That's right. Yeah. When I couldn't help but think, I saw the tweet that said Hi-Fi Rush climbs to whatever number on the Steam charts. I'm like, oh, these guys are making money. That's awesome. They got this fat check from Microsoft, and now they're also making money. And the first thing I thought of was, what if it was being sold on PlayStation as well? Like, that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, wait a minute. This game could totally... What does it run on the... does it run on the Xbox One, or is it this a Series XS game only?
I don't know that answer.
I'm curious, because that would be just a humongous reach. That was the first thing I thought of. I'm not arguing for it to be on other platforms, but that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, what if this was on Switch? What if this was on PlayStation? Because you look at the graphics in it, you're like, oh, this would be a hit everywhere. It just has that appeal, that cartoonish Saturday morning cartoon. And if it's on Steam, are you really padding your ecosystem? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, oh yeah, you gotta be on Xbox. Well, no, I don't. Like, I can play it on Steam. So like, that's what I'm thinking. Oh, it's next gen only. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it would be limited to the PS5. I don't think it could run on Switch if it's next gen only, unless they do it cloud. But that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, dude, Microsoft could be onto something that would just be massive for them if they get ABK and they spin something up on Game Pass and it's a hit and it's being sold everywhere else. That is a ton of money. They get people wanting to be on Game Pass. That's a win. And they get people buying the game everywhere else. That's a winning formula in my book. That's why I think Microsoft could actually really climb out of the lack of fiscal profit or profitability. Like, Xbox is finally, I think I had a profitable fiscal year. We don't know. They don't really release the numbers, but that could be a formula for them to be more of a contender in the market with respect to revenue.
Well, also they at this time, because it's so in its infancy of Game Pass, they don't want to put them out on other consoles yet, right? Because they want you to come to Xbox, right? Sure, you can buy it on Steam and you can buy it through the Microsoft Store, but they want you to get that recurring revenue that they get every single month from the person that comes in, and then the microtransactions on top, and the extra games that you play on Game Pass, the independent developer games. They want you to be this one-stop shop that you come in. So when a game does come out, sure, you can buy it, but they want you on Game Pass, man. And I think maybe if we talk about 5 years down the road, their next system comes out, like the last systems that come out, then a game comes out on Game Pass first, but then it gets launched on other platforms as well. But they need to build that ecosystem up with Game Pass. They want people to come in on it early, get in on the ground floor type of stuff.
I need to see some sort of research where they ask people what is the game that brought you to Game Pass, and see how many, if any, significant number of people were like, oh yeah, this is the game, or if 95% of people on Game Pass are there because they're Xbox players, and then they get Game Pass along with that. I'd be curious because this game there's a ghost drop, which I just said I think is awesome and exciting. I love the idea of it. Oh, and were people saying it reminds them of Jet Set Radio? Okay, is that the right game? I have the same game. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's okay. So now I'm hearing two things that I think are really exciting for me personally. I'll play this. It's this,
and then try Jet Set.
Yeah, well, it's this really hyped up new. Everybody's saying it's great. It's an independent title. It came out of nowhere. Everything sounds good to me. And then you say, Xbox only. Oh, well, I immediately do the meme where you're like, anyway, and I just immediately then move on. I'm lost as a player.
Well, you also have to remember they have a deal. If you have a Samsung TV, smart TV, you can play it through that as well, right? You can play on your mobile. Like, you don't even need a console to play.
I understand, but I'm not going to buy Game Pass for that one indie title.
I understand that.
You know what I mean?
But what about if I gave it to you for $1?
With the Game Pass for $1?
Yeah, Game Pass for $1.
I'm imagining that a whole lot more of the games would have to be really garbagey.
Well, they do it. They give you, if your very first sign up.
Oh, the first month is $1 or whatever.
Yeah, they give you like 3 months. Sometimes I think it is for $1.
Yeah, but don't you have to pay for the 6 months?
See, but I saw it in your face, right? When I said $1, you were like, yeah, I think I would try it, right? And that's
if it was really $1. Yes.
The very first time some people sign up, it's $1, right? And I'm not associated with Microsoft in any way, shape, or form. Someone says I pay $1 every month. There you go, because some people know the secret to start a new account and whatever. But people come in for that $1 and they play all those games and it's worth the value. And then you're stuck in there, right? Because then once you're there, you're hooked because you're like, I bought the DLC for Minecraft Dungeons,
Then
but
I
I
can't
don't own
play
the
it
game.
unless I pay for my subscription.
So you either pay for the subscription or buy the game, right?
Yeah.
It creates a transient nature as well to just how people experience games, because what it almost creates a volume problem. You go, and I've expressed this frustration with PS Plus. I go to the menu and there's stuff everywhere. There's PS Plus, there's trials, there's 2 areas where I can go for new game catalog, there's 2 areas I can go for trials. It's like what it almost gets redundant, and sometimes I just feel like I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And so it's hard for that value communication to be there. And that's something with Xbox Game Pass that I think it could hurt itself. It's like it's a volume problem. It becomes transient. It's like you're just always checking to be like, well, what's here? And if games are just constantly sort of passing through your brain like a river, and you're like, yeah, that one was okay. That one was okay. You never have any skin in the game. It's like when we grew up, my brother and I, and my other brother, we had friends who were a little. The nicest way to say it is they were very fawned over with toys. They had tons of toys, right? Their parents would buy them everything they asked for. And when you'd go to their house, the value that they placed on the toys was so minimal. They treated the toys like junk. So that they didn't, Raphael didn't have his weapons and G.I. Joe's had pieces missing. Wow, well, they didn't care.
Unacceptable.
Point these people out to me, Lono. I will come over there and I will punch them in the face.
And so whenever we got toys, you kept everything together. You kept all the pieces because it was like we didn't get as many, right? So our value on it was higher. We treated it differently. There was a greater reverence. There was a greater respect. So that's another thing I think that could happen here is that if you're constantly sort of treating this abundance of games in that way, your value of those games could go down, which inherently can create this idea of like, why would I ever buy a game? Why would I ever pay full price? Because you're playing games for a couple hours, if that, and you don't value it, so you don't really complete it. I'm not saying everybody would do this, but I'm saying this could be a psychological devaluing effect for people as they engage with the content. Zubair saying, why is that a bad thing? I developed a new relationship with subscription music, but it's neither better nor worse. I would say it's got to be harder for artists to break out. It's got to be harder for people to get your attention. Also, there's the music ecosystem. If you talk to artists, actually has been harder now for them to like sell their music and to make money on it because of that. So if that subscription effect happens to games, you have to wonder. People are going to start to say, yeah, why would you buy a game? Why? Who buys games these days? It can have that devaluing effect. It can have that almost cheapening effect of, I'm not going to bother buying games anymore. Now, again, that then puts pressure on the developers and on Microsoft to deliver good games, because if not, people might start to approach the subscription funnel and say, there's just not enough here. The titles aren't good enough. They might start to associate that diluted content with the brand of Xbox as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's my biggest thing. Like, this is why I said in the very beginning, I like Sony PlayStation's model of at least first-party title games that come out. They give them time to breathe. They make their money. They sell the 8 million copies of the game, and then it goes on sale, and then it sells more copies, and then it goes on sale even more, and then they put it onto the service, and then people that didn't play it are now getting value, didn't try it, now pay for that, and it gives that game a life. Third-party games are different. First-party games need to breathe and have some life to make that money, and then they get tossed onto the system. So I don't know if Microsoft will ever change that down the road once they hit that number. As of right now, I just feel like it dilutes the value of their games they're putting out.
Do you guys think they ever create a hierarchy within Game Pass where there's games that you get a trial of, but they're not free? You actually have to buy them, or maybe different sections. So it's like, well, these guys are going to get more primo treatment because they're first party. These games go here. Do you think they'll, because of the nature of the volume, they'll have to create a hierarchy to draw more attention to certain games, or to, again, motivate purchase?
They already have a Microsoft preview program for some games. Like Grounded was in the preview program before it came out out to pay. So I think they already have that. I don't know if they'll like a paid tier. You're talking about like what Sony's doing with the $25, whatever it is, and you get like 2 hours to sample the demo. Maybe. I mean, they potentially could, but I don't know. I think Microsoft, because they're part of a $1 trillion company, I don't think they have to do that, right? They're bigger brothers paying for the bills if they don't make it overall. It's just another company in the overall company.
My inkling would be that similar to any other gigantic place who's got a vested interest in selling, so like Amazon or any place with a website that sells to 1 billion customers a day, there's going to be some extent of human choosing like what to spotlight. Here's this week's spotlights are, the editor's choice this week of these the top 10 indie games this week that you haven't seen before. You were sleeping on these, so you got to try these games. And then, but there's also going to be part of it that's an algorithm that's trying to say, well, what is suddenly popular today that we could boost, get more eyeballs, and therefore maybe more people enjoy this game that they would have otherwise missed. And then there's the profit motive, right? If we sell more subscriptions or we sell more individual copies of this game, because either a curator, a human editor who picks the list to boost, or to what extent the math is boosting something to get more eyeballs and therefore maybe more dollars. I don't know if it's a dilution or if it's just that the ocean gets bigger, and so there's more choices across the board. And so you get more really good games, and you get a whole bunch more really crappy games, just like we always had. And so what if in the end it's still a very similar percentage of, 10% of these games are phenomenal, and 30% of the games are almost unplayable, and the other games are somewhere in the middle. And that's the kind of the same ratio of quality we had when we went to the video store to rent NES games, and most of them were just terrible.
Garbage, yeah.
And maybe a couple games a year were what we now think of. Oh, back in the day we had every game was awesome. No, it wasn't. There was a couple good games that year, and everything else was abysmal. And I feel like maybe we kind of had that same thing. Now there's just, instead of 100 games a year, there's 10,000.
Well, if you look at like what Disney's doing, right? Disney lost money in the streaming service. They lost I think it was almost $2 billion or $3 billion in the streaming service this last year. Meanwhile, the parks pay for that, right? That's offsetting the loss they have there. They made $28 billion with their park revenue. So, like Microsoft is making, I mean, your computer that you're using right now has Microsoft on it, right? They make a ton of money everywhere else. So like this little small division, even though Microsoft, or I should say Xbox, is a huge division, it's a small little part of the puzzle that Microsoft is making trillions of dollars. And if they lose money in the gaming sphere, but it's worth staying in the gaming sphere, they're like, it's okay. It's a write-off for them. You know what I mean? Like, they don't really need to be number one in this market. They don't really need to be, they just need to be in the market.
And that's the question. If many people think like Microsoft would be shifting even to like more of a publisher role, and that would enable them to, again, they want to own all this software and treat it in that way. It's more about, we want our property everywhere. We want our property on every single platform that's out there, as opposed to focusing so hard on, we got to get people in our funnel, we got to get people on our ecosystem, we got to get people to buy Xboxes. They kind of shift to a completely different format and a completely different sort of almost like hierarchy of value. It's like, well, it doesn't really matter where you play now. Our games are everywhere. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that comes to fruition over the next couple of years, 5 years or so, especially if they manage to snag Activision Blizzard, that they really shift into that role more than they're worried about, oh, we got to sell as many Xboxes as Sony and all of this. Because I think they lost that foothold, and well, I don't know if they've ever really had it for very long, but that console foothold for Xbox is just not their concern any longer, especially with them putting Game Pass on televisions.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need a box anymore. It's more of a software drive.
I have an argument always in my channel. People are always, I'm telling you that I was like, Microsoft doesn't care about selling game units. They don't. They just care about selling the service. That's why Game Pass is their number one driving factor. Get games on Game Pass, get Game Pass out. They want Game Pass to be like Windows. Windows is software on everyone's computer. They want Game Pass and the app to be on TVs, mobile phones, everywhere. They want it everywhere. They want it to be a household name. They want it to. That's what the driving factor is. Like when you think playing video games, you think Microsoft, you think Game Pass. That's what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if that's true, though, now when they said that Game Pass is only going to be like 15% of the revenue. Like, is that so central to their identity that that's what they want you to think of?
Yeah, but that's still a bigger percentage than what they were making anyway. And you see what I'm saying? That they would rather be number one in this made up section that they just made than being fourth in the other division.
Somebody says, Malcolm says, why would they go to publisher only when both platforms make an immense amount for charging their 30%? Makes no sense to give up that foothold. They're expanding, and Sony is starting to expand also. I mean, yeah, it's only 15% of their gaming revenue on the Game Pass thing. I don't. Them going software model, publisher model increases their foothold. What do you mean? That means their games would be everywhere. Imagine that Hi-Fi Rush game being sold on every platform. Like, they would be making more money on it. Like, imagine Starfield when it launches actually landing on every platform. Like, that's a humongous foothold, because like PlayStation's market saturation with the PS5s continue to go up. Like, do you guys think, I've been throwing that out there, I like asking this every time, do you think Starfield ever ends up on PlayStation?
I think like probably I would say probably like a year or so afterwards. Maybe 2 years.
I mean, I would love it if it did. That's the only way I'll ever play it.
Right.
Other than watching you play it whenever you try it, whenever it, if this game is real.
Yeah.
So.
Tommy says in chat, he says that if they are focused on purchasing developers, if Game Pass is the focus, why are they purchasing publishers? Because they want more game companies on Game Pass. They want to control the market with the first party titles. That's why they don't want to go out and pay a person that makes one game to get the rights of it to be on Game Pass. They'd rather put first party titles on Game Pass.
Yeah, and that's why I've said it's multifaceted strategy. It's they can buy games, and then those games get to go onto Game Pass, and then they can sell them everywhere else. Like, it's a really, really smart strategy. And even lately, there was an interview with Pete Hines where he was more vague. Like, there's been a tone shift. There has been a tone shift on whether or not Starfield just stays an Xbox exclusive. He kind of said, I don't know. It was like, all of a sudden, he's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, it was almost like a shrugged shoulder. It was like, yeah, I don't know. It might not be. It's like, wait, that wasn't exclusive to Xbox.
If a game like that or like Hi-Fi was to come to my ecosystem of choice and I could play it, if it was only through Game Pass, I'll tell you what, I'm doing the thing where I pretend I'm got a new subscription. I'm paying $1 for a month. I'm not going to sign up to be a perpetual subscriber. I'm not going to do it. If there's a Xbox app on the other system and then I can actually pay for just the one game I want, okay, I'd rather do that. Otherwise, I'll pay the $1 and try them, and then I'll quit. That's what I would. I don't know what the majority of potential customers that they have. They might pay or consider changing systems of choice or to an Xbox branded television for one game. I think a lot of that would be if their ecosystem is truly everywhere at some point. That's because then they can just get more subscribers because it's already there. People will pay for it by default. Well, how do you get the YouTubes to work on this TV? Well, just pay for the subscription.
Right.
And then they end up in without even maybe knowing that they're now on a gaming rig because they're, using that TV and paying to use their. I think subscriptions in that way are kind of sneaky.
Yeah.
They love their sneaky.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd ever see Game Pass on PlayStation. There's people that have said, Microsoft wants to put Game Pass everywhere. And I'm like, I don't see PlayStation or Nintendo allowing that. I don't think so. They have their own subscription services that they're interested in. But if Starfield launches and then spends a year getting polished and getting better and upgrading and da-da-da-da-da, and then they kick Starfield over to PlayStation, oh my gosh, like it would do so, like the sales would do amazing because you could get it all bundled, all the quality of life updates, because, Wheezy's pushing back and saying, just keep Starfield on PC and Xbox, strengthen their first party offering. And I'm like, I don't, if the ABK deal goes through, I don't see that being the strategy, because their first party offerings right now are a giant question mark. We don't know what any of their first party studios are doing. You know, the Rare is supposedly working on Everwild, and allegedly that creative director left. You know, allegedly Fable is having problems. If they're looking under the hood of their first party offerings and it's shaky, they might start saying this is not the way for us. The way for us is software driven. We must distribute and sell software everywhere for the Xbox gaming division to be justifiable. So, well, I really want to shift gears to Dead Space Remake gameplay. We typically don't go to a third live stream, but I kind of have to because people are dying to see what I think, and I'm going to play it. It's getting great reviews. We covered it this morning. So, but before we do that, so if you're wanting to see Dead Space Remake gameplay, don't go anywhere, but you might want to go somewhere. You might want to check out 30NSG. That's Mike's channel, and he can tell you the kind of content he creates that you might be able to catch. Mike, what are they going to find if they come and find your channel?
So I do 4 days a week in the mornings from 10 o'clock in the morning to about noon Eastern. I do sort of like what Lono does. I do breakdowns of videos, his, my viewpoints, his viewpoints. It's the same type of content. We do that in the mornings. We do Let's Plays in the evenings, Monday through Wednesday from 8 o'clock at night to about 10 o'clock in the evening. And then we also have a podcast, which is like our flagship thing we do on Thursday nights called Generation X Gaming, which goes over a few of the top stories in the past week, and we rant along the way. Been doing that for 9 years, so it's a staple on my channel. And then on top of that, we do uploads as well over on 30NSG.
So that's a great reason to check out 30 and his content. It is quite a bit different than mine. And those of you that tune in on Friday nights, my brother and I will be playing some games tonight. GoldenEye released. I got a ton of goofy games. That is members only, though. That is members only. But if that time slot works for you, then you should definitely check out 30 on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. So Derek and I will be playing tonight. Now, I don't know if he's going to stick around and watch me play Dead Space and laugh, because I have a feeling we might do that. Because it's I don't know how much I'm going to like the game or not. I'm going to try to be nice, but there's elements that look really dated.
I can't do it with GoldenEye. I can't.
It's literally the original game. Like it's not even 16:9. Like it's 4:3. Like, oh my gosh! So we'll see how that goes tonight. So those of you that are in the live audience, don't go anywhere. We're gonna say goodbye to 30, and I'm gonna get set up for Dead Space. So the stream's gonna continue, but Mike's gonna say goodbye. Mike, thanks so much for hanging out, guys. Check him out, 30NSG. Appreciate you being on the show.
Take it easy. Have a good day.
All right, wait, we should go second cam. I don't have a great cam right now for this scene because we got all set up for 2. We got all set up for 2. That is awkward. You want to stay and watch this game?
What game is this? Is this
the Dead Space remake?
Is it real? Is this a real game?
It's a real game. There are real games.
Real game?
There is a real game. It's gonna be good. Hang on a second. So
like aliens and stuff?
Yeah, like scary, spooky horror.
Are there any bad words?
Yes. Once we're in this next stream, you'll be able to swear. I know you're having a hard time not doing that. You stopped yourself like so many times during the episode.
Don't. You just...
All right. Oh.
I mean, I can always scoot my chair over a little bit.
It's gonna be a. There we go. That's good. Okay. Here's what we'll do. Let's get set up here. To play game. What? Stop. All right. Hang on. Oh, we gotta not do circle. There we go. And then I'm gonna crop just a touch of that edge off. There we go. Did they shadow drop Dead Space? What? No. Yeah, they shadow dropped it. Okay, I'll put a link in chat and we will redirect. But give me like 1 minute to quickly run upstairs. I was drinking water throughout that whole show. And we'll switch gears in just a second. I wanted to give this game about an hour to an hour and a half, and then feel free, guys, to save any members or gifted members that you want to do maybe for the next stream. That way we can get some more people maybe that can tune in tonight and hang out with us. So give me 1 second. I will be right back. Let me go. We already did all this, didn't we? Yeah, invert y-axis. We already did all this. Okay, we'll be on this screen. Give me 1 second. Don't break anything.
I'm gonna break everything.
I come down to this shit.
What do you guys want to know? What do you ladies want to know? Ask me the questions you don't want him to know that I'm answering. Before I destroy everything. I'm probably still a little jet lagged. It ended up taking, I think, from my apartment to Louisville, between, you know, busing to the airport, which is 4 hours, and then waiting in the airport for 6 hours, and then an 11-hour flight, and then the next airport, and then a small delay because of de-icing, and then the final flight. I don't know, 26 hours total transit time with, you know, whatever naps you can take on whichever plane you happen to be on. So the sleeping schedule's all up in the air. So I feel fine, but don't really know what time it is, you know? Speak some Korean. Morakano? Morakano. How do you pay? Because when I watch the stream, it's midnight where I am. So I go to work and then I watch the stream at night before I go to bed. Oh, let's see what else people say here. Embarrassing story about Lono. I live in South Korea. I'm from Ohio, just like Lono. But this is my second time in the last 6 months to come home, so we couldn't do much traveling for a few years, so it's nice to do a couple back-to-back visits and spend, as much time as I can. Okay, so Rocket Robin says, what was it like growing up with Lono? There are certain things that he does in the stream that you all get used to. You've been watching him do it for every day for a couple weeks or a few months or a year or two or three. I'm telling you what, there is some stuff that I've seen him do since he was a kid. With gaming specifically. How tall? I don't know how tall he is. But I'm fully switched over to centimeters now. We do metric. Probably 160. Here he comes. What?
Yeah.
You mean the wrestling NWO?
New World Order.
Or do you mean, the global conspiracy? He loved it. He was all about it.
That's right. One world government.
He was all about the Illuminati.
My favorite.
He went to the Mason's Lodge meetings secretly as a teenager.
Wait, what am I wearing?
If you wear the sunglasses during Dead Space, you won't be able to see the monsters as easily. It'll be less scary.
I was switching to the slightly lighter frames because they're just a little bit heavier. And when I'm wearing headphones, all their frames are super light, but the augments are just a teeny bit bigger and heavier than all the other frames. Does Lono hair stand up like that on its own? Yes. That's by design. I was born this way.
Born different. I'm built different.
I'm built different. I'm born different. Oh, hang on. I have to switch this to... Oh, golly. Okay. I'm going to ping the Discord so people know we're playing. Whoop.
Probably make sure to unmute the Discord.
It's not... They can hear me.
You sure? Is this stream even real?
No.
Can they even hear us in there?
No.
Can they just see us talking like...
We're in the Matrix. Okay. Dead Space Remake gameplay. Live. We're live. Oops. Let's get some hashtags on there. Dead Space Remake is trending. Let's tweet that out. Send it now. Okay. Guys, I'll give you a link in chat. We will be doing a redirect. But sometimes redirect is really funky and doesn't work all that well. So, if you prefer, this is a question for your brother. How is the Hogwarts situation over in Korea? Oh, I don't even think do they pay any attention to that?
No, they just say, oh, Harry Potter, let's go.
Yeah.
Harry Potter? Oh. Harry Potter.
Hajima.
If they like it, they like it. They don't care about any of that extra NES
I know
stuff.
Hajima and Kajima.
Oh, Hajima.
Yeah, as far as discussing Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling, Kajima. That means do not go there.
Yeah, don't do it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start this stream. Thank you so much for clicking on this. I'm doing it. I'm diving in to Dead Space Remake gameplay. We're doing this. We're doing it. And so if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and the bell button. My brother's actually going to join me on the stream. It'll probably be a really fun time. I have shorts and topics. I did a background, right? I did a background of like all of the reviews. If you want to watch my review rundown, go check that out. You know, was I wrong about this game? My issues are primarily with the graphics, not the game itself. I'm actually looking forward to this. I've always had people tell me that I need to play the original. I'm going to end the previous stream and bring everybody over with a redirect. Make sure as you come over from the redirect,